Welcome back to the survival show Wilderness, as Season 5 officially returns. 10 survival warriors, selected from the previous 4 seasons, are dropped into the remote wilderness of Mongolia. Contestants must not only find ways to survive, but also face black bears and wolf packs that can appear anywhere, and they might even encounter dangerous venomous snakes. The last one standing will win a cash prize of $500,000. This is a chance for redemption for former contestants. Can they wash away their past shame? Or will they have to pack up and leave early? As the helicopter slowly departs, the first person to appear is Chubby Sam. He survived 55 days in the first season. After briefly scouting the surrounding terrain, he decides to build a temporary shelter first. Unexpectedly, there isn't a single large tree around. He has to settle for a small grove and covers it with a waterproof tarp. In the first season, Sam was too young and inexperienced, so he had to eat rats to survive. The harsh environment and missing his pregnant wife made him give up the game early. Now his wife has given birth to their second child, and the high cost of diapers and formula forces him to return to the challenge again. Facing this rare opportunity, Sam is determined to win the championship. He uses wood to build a simple camp frame, then stretches a waterproof tarp over it. But just as he finishes, Sam sheds tears like an honest man. Could it be that he's already thinking of giving up? The second person to appear is someone even an AI would remember, the salmon-releasing saint from Season 2. Nick. Compared to the deserted Patagonia island before, this Mongolian region is famously flat. Looking around, there's no suitable place to pitch a tent. Unexpectedly, the challenge is tough right from the start. In Season 2, Nick survived 57 days. At first, she ate luxurious wild salmon every day, but couldn't resist releasing the fish like a saint. As a result, she had to eat wild grass to stave off hunger. In the end, she withdrew due to missing her son. With this precious second chance, Nick wants to explore her true limits. She walks a large circle around the grassland, finally deciding to camp in the bushes behind. Here, she must chop trees extremely carefully, because the grass is full of toxic radioactive elements. If bitten, she'd be done for. After tying 3 logs together to form a tripod at the top, Nick expands the frame and adds a crossbar, finally covering it with a waterproof tarp to complete it. Just as she finishes, imagining a protein-rich meal, a roar suddenly echoes from a distant mountain peak. Thinking it's a deer, she looks closely, but something feels off. The sound is clearly from a local carnivore, prompting Nick to quickly light a fire to ward it off. The third contestant to appear is Callie. As soon as she sets foot, she catches a few wild grasshoppers. Taking advantage of not being hungry yet, she puts them in a bag to carry along. Callie endured 86 days in Season 3. She caught only 6 fish throughout the show. Most of the time, she relied on extraordinary hunger endurance. But ultimately, due to health issues, she was forced to stop by the show. The game was just short of winning the championship, leaving her deeply regretful. This time in Mongolia, Callie has gained over 15 kilograms and trained fishing skills for 2.5 years, hoping for a successful comeback. She uses grasshoppers as bait, deciding to prioritize finding food first, because no one wants to start off and go hungry shortly after. The first wild carp takes the bait, and its size is certainly not small. Callie reties the bait, and as soon as she casts the line, another fish bites immediately. Her luck is truly phenomenal. Before she can cheer, a third fish follows suit. Catching 3 wild fish in one morning is more than she caught in 2 months last time. It seems she'll truly dominate the game this time. That night, Callie cooks herself a grand fish feast. Its presentation alone looks enticing. Taking a bite, she can only exclaim, "Oh my God!" The fish meat is tender, melting in the mouth, and its protein content is several times that of beef. After eating heartily, Callie falls into a deep sleep. The next morning, the fourth contestant, Jesse, wakes up without even putting on pants. All his body's weak points are fully exposed. He warms up with a few simple exercises, then starts building a permanent shelter. In the duo challenge of Season 4, Jesse's brother, Son, suffered a spinal injury from a fall, forcing him to withdraw after 5 days. After returning home, Jesse quit his job to pursue his passion for wilderness hiking and camping. Before Jesse set out, his brother reminded him to build a sturdy shelter, learning from turtles, living slowly but surely. Only with clear goals and steady steps can success be achieved. But as Jesse goes out to scout the area, he discovers gray wolf tracks on the ground. And everyone knows wolves live in packs. One wolf might be manageable, but a whole pack could be life-threatening. A few steps further, he sees bone fragments scattered on the ground. For safety, he decides to return to camp. Meanwhile, on Sam's side, while resting in his camp, he suddenly hears a wolf howling. Excitedly, he responds with a howl. The other side, hearing it's not a local wolf, immediately growls to scare him off. Sam knows well that if targeted by a wolf pack, he's done for. So he quickly packs up his gear and prepares to find a new spot for a permanent shelter. On the way, he discovers many wild onions, a valuable food source in the wilderness. He gathers some for dinner. Continuing forward, he suddenly spots a porcupine in the grass ahead, startling him. When he calms down, he realizes this animal's meat is even better than lean meat. Sam plans to knock it out with a stick to eat, but it suddenly disappears without a trace. Such a pity. To avoid being attacked by other porcupines, if he stops now, he can still head back to Nick's side. After the lesson of wasting food last time, this time she becomes extremely frugal, not even overlooking earthworms on the ground. Just a bit of it contains more energy than beef. So far, Nick has only eaten a few grasshoppers, plus some edible herbs for supplement. Only with a balanced mix of protein and greens will the body avoid issues. Hopefully, this bit of energy can help her hold on until she finds a protein source. Time quickly moves to day 4. Callie, like before, lies around lazily all day. Logically, she should start building a shelter now, but Callie doesn't think so. She stubbornly goes to the river to fish every day. Perhaps because she was so hungry last season, she now prioritizes finding protein. Surprisingly, her luck is as good as ever today. In no time, she catches a wild perch. Before she can rejoice, a second fish bites quickly. But while pulling the fish to shore, it suddenly jerks hard, causing the hook to pierce straight into the back of Callie's hand. This is not fun at all, because the hook has a barb. No matter how hard she tries, she can't pull it out. Callie panics and bursts into tears. If she has to quit because of this small injury, it would be such a waste of effort. She immediately runs to the meadow, finding some wet grass to stop the bleeding. Then she picks some plants and leaves with anti-inflammatory properties, chews them up, and applies them to the wound, hoping to reduce the pain somewhat. Last season, she endured 86 days, so this time, until the final moment, she would never give up. At first, Callie planned to scrape off some herbs and try to pull out the hook, but the pain was unbearable and the hook wouldn't budge. Fearing that if it went deeper, it could damage her hand's tendons, she decides to find a way to cut the hook in half. But she doesn't have the right tools on hand. Moreover, the injured hand is her dominant one, and using a knife for hours has no effect. In pain, she enters day 5. The hook has been in her hand for 20 hours. Fearing infection leading to tetanus, after 2.5 hours of tough deliberation, Callie finally calls the organizers. It's truly a pity. As the yellow pickup truck slowly approaches, Callie's tears can't help but fall. You must know, with her hunger endurance skills, she could at least last until the end of the competition. But reality is incredibly harsh. Just a small injury can become a reason to leave the game. Finally packing up her gear, Callie reluctantly withdraws from the competition. Time moves to day 4. Now, 9 contestants remain. The man looking like a wild man before us is Larry, who catches a small squirrel early in the morning, making him jump with joy. After days of hunger, he finally gets protein. Larry survived 64 days in Season 2. In the early stages, he barely survived on rats. Back then, he was young and inexperienced, so in the latter half, his spirit nearly collapsed. Unable to bear the hunger, he quit and went home. Larry continued working as an electrician, in his spare time learning wilderness survival skills. For this second chance to challenge himself, Larry is full of confidence. This time, he'll try harder than the last season. He goes to the river to process the squirrel meat, leaving the innards by the shore to see if they attract any predators. If lucky, he might get another meal. Then he returns to camp to grill the meat over a fire. In just over 10 minutes, he can't wait any longer and starts enjoying the delicacy. Anyone who's eaten grilled squirrel knows the flavor is quite like chicken, with a protein content higher than beef. Time moves to day 5. The 6th contestant is also a veteran named Depp. Before setting out, the organizers required each person to bring 2 pairs of underwear to change. But Depp has been going commando for over 25 years. For him, wearing underwear or not doesn't matter. So he immediately uses the underwear to make a broom to swat away mosquitoes attacking him. To supplement protein, he takes a fishing rod to the river to fish. You must know, in Season 3, Depp was the contestant with the best physical condition, saving every bit and lasting 73 days. But because he was too reluctant to eat, he lost significant weight. Ultimately, the organizers forced him to withdraw, along with 33 smoked fish he had stored. The first month after returning home, Depp quit his job and moved into a van, starting a self-sufficient life in the wilderness. With this precious second chance, he is determined to win the championship. He stands in the river for 2.5 hours without catching a single fish. So he switches to hunting, bringing his heirloom bow and arrow to a small forest. Listening carefully to every sound around, a pheasant suddenly runs past. Quickly drawing the bow and shooting an arrow, his excited expression shows dinner is promising. He hurriedly retrieves it from the water. At this moment, Depp's smile is brighter than beef. It turns out he shot a pheasant weighing 2.5 kilos. He runs to the river to clean its innards and feathers. Without resting, he returns to camp to cook. This way, more nutrients are preserved. Taking a bite. Oh my gosh, the flavor is absolutely top-notch. The only downside is there's little meat. Otherwise, there's nothing to complain about. The seventh contestant is Brad. The first few days, he focused only on building a shelter, so he barely ate anything. In the duo challenge of Season 4, Brad was responsible for crossing mountains to meet his brother, but his clumsy brother sprained his ankle. So before surviving even a day, both had to leave the game. After returning home, their blacksmith shop did better business, but still lacked funds to expand. This time, invited to compete again, Brad wants to showcase his survival skills that he didn't get a chance to last time. He says he wants to make his family and friends proud. However, reality is as harsh as ever. 5 days have passed. Brad has barely eaten anything and even seems to have lost a few kilos. To find food, he uses grasshoppers as bait and sets up several automatic fish traps. He even weaves fish nets and places them both upstream and downstream. However, after days of busyness, he still hasn't caught anything. The situation of not finding food makes him start to worry. If he can't get food from the water, he turns to land. Seeing broken tree branches in the distance, Brad guesses squirrels are active around there. So he immediately uses wire to make several snare traps. To increase his success rate, he sets over 50 traps, declaring he'll make the other contestants see how formidable he is. It's now day 6. The 8th contestant, Britt, appears. He resiliently survived 33 days in Season 3, but later, unable to find food, he had to eat grass to stave off hunger and was finally forced to withdraw. After returning home, he resumed his accounting job. In his spare time, he honed his archery skills. When he learned of a second chance to compete, Britt didn't hesitate and immediately joined. To survive, he had prepared for a long time. He caught a few wild ants in the bushes, skewered them on a stick, and roasted them. It wasn't because he couldn't catch anything else, but because he wanted to try a new flavor he'd never tasted. When they were roasted crispy on the outside and soft inside, he ate them. What was the taste like? Crunchy. At the same time, Larry fills a bottle with boiling water and decides to explore around his camp. Before leaving, he smears some charcoal on his face for sun protection. While walking, Larry spots 2 wild pheasants flying by. So he plans to set a few snare traps to try his luck, using the familiar spring mechanism and sturdy wire. Even though it's a simple trap, it takes Larry 2.5 hours to finish, far exceeding his initial estimate. On his way back to camp, he discovers gray wolf tracks. Combined with scattered animal entrails, it's clear that this area is frequently visited by packs of wolves. To ensure his safety, Larry immediately returns to camp. However, just after taking a sip of water, he hears wolf howls not far away. Judging by the sound, there must be 5 or 6 wolves. Out of curiosity, Larry decides to check the situation, but after walking for a while, he sees no sign of the wolves, only hearing their howls in the darkness. Thinking of this pack so close to his shelter, he begins to consider whether he should find another place to survive. Back with Brad, today is trap-checking day. He has been hungry for 6 days and can't endure it any longer. He goes to the river to check the situation. The bait is still calmly sitting in the water. This drives him mad with frustration. He continues checking the traps on land. As expected, all 50 traps are empty. What truly bad luck. He's so unlucky he can't even speak. Without a source of protein, he can only drink some boiled water to fill his stomach. The huge shock makes Brad start thinking about withdrawing. If he can't catch any protein tomorrow, he might really have to go home. Now it's day 7. Brad wakes up early to check his traps, but sadly, he still catches nothing. Unwilling to give up, he puts his last hope into fishing. But it seems even the heavens want him to go home. Standing by the river all day, he still comes up empty-handed. He can't bear it anymore. He initially wanted to prove himself, but he didn't expect to starve for a week. Then, without hesitation, he calls to withdraw. As the dirty yellow pickup truck slowly arrives, this guy seems too inexperienced. It's better for him to obediently return home to blacksmithing. Now, 8 players remain in the competition. Back to Britt. Taking advantage of today's nice weather, he tries to catch a few fish to improve his meals. The bait is the grasshoppers he caught earlier. There is no comparison, you don't see the difference. In just a moment, a fresh fish takes the bait, proving that luck and environment are both important. Right after that, the second and third fish also take the bait. He even unexpectedly catches a 4th. Recalling the fish pond he made in Season 3, Britt plans to repeat the strategy. He He finds a small pool and puts all the fish in it, hoping they will still be there tomorrow morning. Anyone who has watched the show knows that this is no different from releasing the fish. On day 8, when Britt checks the pool, he immediately screams. As expected, the 3 fish he left yesterday are gone without a trace. Looking at the scattered footprints around, it's likely a pack of gray wolves ate them clean during the night. Recalling his actions yesterday, Britt just wants to slap himself. Now, 3 days of meals are gone. Time moves to day 7. There are still 8 players in the competition. The 9th contestant is Nika. Last night, while sleeping soundly, wolf howls suddenly rang out around her camp, making her suspicious of every sound around. She decides to reinforce her shelter to make it sturdier. In the duo challenge of Season 4, Nika and her husband survived together for 49 days, but ultimately had to withdraw due to lack of resources and health issues. After returning home, both continued their outdoor work. To make up for her previous regret, Nika hopes to fully showcase her abilities this time. She collects 11 piles of firewood and plans to build a fire pit in her camp. After planning, she starts digging immediately. To prevent the fire from burning the walls, she needs to line it with stones. Remembering to strike fire with flint, the fire easily ignites. Of course, she leaves a gap for smoke to escape. With a roaring fire, she no longer has to worry about predators. Over at Nick's side, she takes advantage of the nice weather to wash off the body odor. Today's task is to continue improving the shelter. Food can be dealt with later. She chops 2 sturdy branches to make beams for the camp's roof. This type of wood needs to be collected in large quantities, but due to a lack of energy, Nick soon feels her limbs become exhausted. Initially, she doesn't pay much attention, but as the symptoms become clearer, Nick suddenly recalls her past muscular sclerosis. 5 years ago, the initial signs were exactly like this. This makes her extremely worried. She hurriedly returns to camp to rest. At this moment, she is terrified of her old illness recurring because once it flares up, her whole body will stiffen, making even walking a problem, let alone surviving here. But for now, she can only wait and see. To fill her stomach, Nick forces herself to dig some wild onions to eat. She plans to find some herbs around the area to see if they can help, but after searching for a while, she still can't find the one she wants. If this continues, her body will soon have problems. Switching to Jesse, so far, he has survived a week with only wild onions. Today, he plans to dig more to curb his hunger. Bringing his tools to the bushes, he unexpectedly finds a lot of wild onions there and quickly gathers a good amount. Looking at the white, plump onions, they would be perfect if paired with grilled meat. After gathering, he heads back to camp. Unexpectedly, he spots a snake coiled up, ready to attack. Jesse is not about to let this protein slip away. He shoots an arrow, taking down the snake. Back at camp, he processes it, skinning the snake and getting a piece of fresh snake meat. Then he puts it in a pot to cook over high heat. In just over 10 minutes, he contentedly enjoys the delicious meal. Snake meat tastes no different from chicken, and its nutritional value is even 10 times higher than beef. In no time, Jesse eats it clean, leaving only bones, wishing every day could have a catch like this. The final contestant to appear is Randy. From the start, he planned the size of his shelter to look like a wilderness mansion. Randy was a contestant in Season 2. Despite losing his flint, he managed to survive 21 days, but ultimately withdrew due to unbearable loneliness. After returning, he became an outdoor hiker, occasionally teaching survival skills. Still regretting his previous withdrawal, this time, he's determined to give his all, always keeping himself busy and completing the small goals he has set. The top priority now is building his wilderness mansion. This is very labor and time-intensive, not only requiring him to collect a lot of wood, but also to seal the wall gaps. To find food, Randy shows the calm of a true professional, always observing every movement around him. By the river, he picks up a beer bottle, attaches a hook and bait, and then casts it into the water, instantly turning it into a handy fishing tool. Sure enough, soon after, a fish bites. Randy sets a limit to fish for only 15 minutes each day, but even in that time, he catches 2 wild fish. Back at camp, he starts cooking. The moment he opens the pot, the aroma fills the air. Looking at this greasy fish feast, no one would think he is in a survival competition, but rather on a resort vacation. It's now day 8. Sam is the only one in the group who didn't bring a fish hook or fishing line. I don't know where he got such confidence. He uses the wire he brought to craft a few hooks, then unravels paracord to make fishing line. Then he takes the rod to the river, hoping this homemade gear will yield results. But the homemade hook is too large, and the fish can't swallow it. Waiting by the river forever and still catching nothing, Sam starts feeling embarrassed. So he resorts to the old method, setting traps to catch potatoes. he still uses the falling rock trap method as before. To prevent the prey from escaping, he must use rocks to seal the exit, hoping he can harvest a feast tomorrow morning. Over at Jesse's side, his luck is sky-high this morning. Just going for a walk, he catches a wild pheasant using a type of arrow that doesn't need to pierce the body to kill it. After eating snake meat, now he has grilled pheasant. Truly a dream start. At the river, he simply processes the entrails. High-quality ingredients only need simple preparation. No onions, no ginger, no problem. He stews it until it's 80 to 90% done, and it's ready to eat. First, the firm pheasant thigh. My gosh, the flavor is truly top-notch, incredibly aromatic. The remaining breast is saved for tomorrow. Switching to Nick, she collects some dry bark to build a rainproof roof. But while trying to gather some from up high, she suddenly feels a sharp pain in her neck, accompanied by uncomfortable itching. Not a good sign. It's clearly a sign of her old illness recurring. She carefully rests on the spot for a while, tries to stand up to continue working, but her limbs are exhausted. She returns to camp. Now, even walking feels difficult. Nick feels that this place is very dangerous. If she encounters a predator now, she's as good as dead. She tries to stand up to find herbs, but after 2 steps, she nearly falls as her legs stiffen. Truly miserable. If this continues, she will become incapacitated. Staying here won't accomplish anything. After 2.5 hours of careful thought, Nick finally calls the show. A dirty yellow pickup truck slowly arrives. The doctor quickly checks her injury. Unable to walk, she can only be carried out on a stretcher. It's truly a pity. Despite all her survival skills, she ultimately lost to illness. It looks like it's time to say goodbye to the wilderness. Moving to day 9, only 7 players remain, and it's Sam's turn. Today is trap checking day, and after starving for days, he desperately needs protein. To his surprise, the first 2 traps are empty, but the last trap seems to have caught something good. Lifting the rock, Sam cries out in joy. His reaction makes it seem like he caught a whole cow, but it's just a small bird. Back at camp, he carefully cleans the innards. Though there's little meat, it's enough for a pot of soup. Sam quickly devours it hungrily, his energy restored and ready for the long haul. Next, the contestants will face an unexpected storm, and those with unstable shelters will face major challenges. On day 11, the 7 players are still in the competition. After waking up, Nika stands still, thinking for a moment, and decides to renovate the fireplace in her hut. With no chimney, thick smoke has been keeping her from sleeping well. So she decides to dig a tunnel around the fire pit to draw in air from outside. Then she drags a piece of birch bark back to camp, using it as an air duct. Burying it in the tunnel brings air from outside, helping the fire burn stronger. To direct the smoke to one spot, she uses branches to make a tripod, which she sets up on the fireplace. The fire quickly blazes up, and she no longer has to worry about smoke inhalation. But as soon as she steps out of camp, the sky suddenly darkens. Thunder and lightning signal bad omens, and it seems a storm is coming tonight. She hopes her small hut can withstand it. Before long, night falls, and the storm arrives. Nika, worried her hut won't hold up, dares not sleep. If the waterproof tarp blows away, it's all over. At Depp's camp, a lightning strike nearly scares him senseless. He's very worried about being struck by lightning at night. Meanwhile, on the other side, Larry and Britt are also too scared to sleep. No one knows how long this storm will last. Day 12 finally arrives, and the weather starts to clear up. Depp's makeshift hut somehow held up through the night. Early in the morning, he checks the area and stumbles upon a large dead tree directly across from his shelter. Luckily, the wind didn't knock it down last night, and thinking back, he shudders. For safety, he decides to cut it down and use the trunk to reinforce his shelter. With that done, he heads out to find some protein. Carrying his bow, he cautiously enters a small forest, walking while noting every small sound. Suddenly, a noise comes from a distant tree. He instantly draws his bow and hits the target. Running over, he finds a squirrel lying still on the ground. His accuracy is truly top-notch, with one clean and decisive shot. Looks like he won't go hungry tonight. He processes the prey in a nearby grassy area. With such simple ingredients, just roasting it over the fire will do. When cooked, he takes a bite. The flavor is like beef steak, and the protein content is undeniable. Over at Randy's side, he has spent the past few days perfecting his fancy wilderness mansion. Taking advantage of today's nice weather, it's time to pack up and move into the new house. With this house, he'll be warm and cozy even in winter. However, the log cabin is not yet fully completed. After a brief rest, Randy spreads a waterproof tarp over the roof and then stuffs dry grass into the wall gaps to retain heat. Thinking he's done, he unexpectedly strips off all his clothes to make it easier to gather mud from the water. Everyone knows that a combination of mud and rocks makes an excellent building material. Mixing them and building up layer by layer, he quickly creates a very sturdy fireplace. A fireplace this large is perfect for winter, pure bliss. He immediately lights a fire, and the shelter suddenly feels alive. Now, he just needs to hunt more protein to be completely set. Switching to Brit, today is another fine day for fishing. He brings his gear to the river to try his luck. Unexpectedly, he spots a large field frog on the ground. Initially, he plans to catch and eat it, as it has a crisp, chicken-like flavor. But seeing its skin color, he fears it might be poisonous. Eating it could land everyone in the hospital. For safety, he lets it go. Watching ducklings swim back and forth on the river, Brit decides to target them. To avoid losing arrows, he ties paracord from his survival kit to the arrow, with the other end tied to his leg. Then he ambushes by the river, waiting. With luck, he might even get a moose. And sure enough, there's soon a splash in the water. Getting closer, he sees, oh my, a small moose swimming in the river, calmly drifting along. Brit stands, draws his bow, and shoots. Perhaps he's too excited, as he misses by several inches. The moose, startled, runs to shore. Aiming again, he shoots with force. Sadly, his archery skills are too poor. Multiple shots still fail to hit it. In the end, he gives up, watching a $500,000 prize slip away. Having a chance, but being unable to seize it is as good as nothing. With such poor accuracy, he might as well farm at home. What a pity. Thinking back, Brit is so frustrated he can't breathe. It looks like he'll just have to go hungry. Switching to Larry, since eating that small squirrel last time, he has had almost nothing else to eat. Today, he goes to the river as usual, hoping not to return empty-handed again. Waiting by the river for 2.5 hours, no fish bite. Just as he's about to give up, the rod suddenly shakes. He quickly pulls it to shore. The joy of the catch makes Larry uncontrollable. Jumping and shouting, he has secured another piece of meat. This 2.5 kilogram smooth-scaled fish is enough for a full meal. Time moves to day 15. Brit, feeling bored, gets playful. While gathering firewood in camp, he spots a greedy little squirrel nearby. He picks up a rock and throws it, missing by inches. Not giving up, Brit picks up a large stick and throws again, but the squirrel easily dodges. Why doesn't he use his bow instead of throwing rocks and sticks? What a wasted opportunity. A golden chance right at his door, yet he can't seize it. Switching to Jesse, he checks his overnight fishing gear at the river, unexpectedly catching a 2.5 kilograms pufferfish. But as he tries to pull it up, the fish suddenly thrashes hard and disappears without a trace. This drives Jesse mad with anger, cursing loudly in frustration. It hurts even more than a girlfriend leaving for someone else. Without protein to sustain him, he returns to camp to lie down and endure hunger. How long he can last, even he isn't sure. By day 20, 7 players remain in the competition. Watching a group of ants diligently carrying survival food on the ground fills Brit with renewed faith in life. He goes to the river, using grasshoppers as bait, determined to catch a few fish to improve today's meal. This place is indeed rich in resources. Just casting the line, fish are already fighting to bite. In just 2.5 hours, Brit catches a good amount, finally harvesting 9 wild-scale fish. My gosh, this luck is unreal, he exclaims. 1 fish a day means the next 10 days, he won't have to worry about food. But just as he plans to return to camp, he spots massive gray bear tracks on the ground, scared pale with fear. Knowing his camp isn't far from here, he realizes that if a bear comes at midnight, it's definitely a farewell feast. Looks like this area is gray bear territory, he muses. He'll have to change fishing spots later. Roasting a fish directly over the fire and taking a bite, he notices, oh my, aside from fish meat, it's all bones. The fresh flavor hits the back of his head. At Nika's side, she boils a pot of water in the morning, knowing she must find some food today. To make fishing easier, Nika uses a piece of pine wood to make a fake lure, bringing the lure and gear to the river. Its effectiveness remains to be tested. Since day 3, she's been making camp utensils, all sorts of pots and pans, even crafting earrings and bracelets. To get protein, she spent half a day making a bird trap, but so far, no results. Sitting by the river, she nearly falls asleep, as the hook still shows no movement. What's wrong? Nika can't figure it out. Over at Jesse's side, since those big feasts last time, he's gone a week without protein. With nothing edible around, he turns his attention to pine bark. Compared to searching for food, bark is easy to find and abundant. Most importantly, it's high in calories and fiber, providing considerable energy for the body. Using a small knife to peel off the tough outer bark, he finds the soft white inner bark is edible. Quickly peeling a piece and putting it in his mouth, he notes, It tastes slightly sweet. With 10 times the vitamins of beef, he then drinks some boiled water to let them mix in the stomach. Eating a few pieces like this daily can sustain him for at least 10 days without issue. At Depp's side, thinking of the wild deer mating season approaching, he decides to try his luck on the opposite mountain today. Carrying a 50 kilograms backpack with bow and arrows, he sets off. Half an hour later, he arrives. Here, he must move carefully, as a single small sound could ruin his efforts. Just then, a noise comes from a nearby forest. Depp, with bow in hand, cautiously approaches. One arrow shot, and the wild pheasant lets out a piercing cry. As expected, tonight's dinner is secured. Finding a secluded spot to clean the feathers, Depp isn't happy after the hunt. Constant hunting makes him feel tired, killing small animals to survive. Depp wants to catch a big one instead, to reduce the guilt and pain in his heart. As he speaks, tears suddenly fall. His mind begins to waver between withdrawing or staying. Time moves to day 21, switching to Brit. Sleeping last night, he heard branches snapping near his camp. Judging by the sound, it's likely a black bear weighing hundreds of kilos, perhaps attracted by the smell of fish and meat at camp. For safety, he keeps bear spray by his bed, ready to use at any moment. And so, he spends a night in fear. To verify his theory, after waking up, Brit decides to scout the area. As feared, it happens. Not far along the forest path, he finds many bear tracks on trees. Tracks this big, one swipe would hurt for half a day. Brit is scared pale. Looks like he'll need to be more careful hunting. At Larry's, he sleeps until noon. After waking up, he decides to dig some dandelions for breakfast. So far, Larry has lost 10 kilograms. On days without protein, he relies solely on dandelions to survive, gaining a bit of energy. He takes his rod to the river, hoping to catch fish like last week. Sadly, the heavens don't favor him, catching one, but it escapes. Still, Larry doesn't give up. Instead, he eagerly tries again. Unexpectedly, soon after, another fish bites, making him shout with joy. You'd think he caught a shark, but as he prepares to return to camp, he suddenly feels dizzy, vision blurs, and his head spins, clear signs of low blood sugar. He must quickly cook the fish. High-quality food must be roasted directly over fire. As Larry goes to gather firewood nearby, suddenly, everything goes dark, and he collapses, fainting for a few minutes. Luckily, nothing serious. Under the scorching sun, Larry struggles to stand, not yet concerned about his condition. He hurriedly checks if the fish is cooked. When the fish is crispy outside, soft inside, he takes a bite, feeling energy surge through his body. Truly wonderful. Thinking back to fainting earlier, Larry thinks it's from eating too many dandelions. Looks like, with a hungry stomach, he can't eat recklessly. Time moves to day 23 at Sam's. After waking up, he scoops a bucket of rainwater from the tarp, mixed with bird and rat droppings. But he drinks it without hesitation. Sam really knows how to conserve energy, but it's unclear if he'll get sick from it. Seeing the leaves on the mountain turning yellow, indicating the weather will get colder, he realizes that not wanting to be woken by cold winds at night, it's time to complete a permanent shelter. He removes the tarp from the temporary hut and spreads it over the roof. Then he prepares a single bed for himself. Matching the house's frame, he saws logs to the right length, then ties them tightly with wire and spreads dry grass and a sleeping bag on top. No different from a cozy mattress at home. Of course, wind and rain barriers are essential. After 2.5 hours of relentless effort, a simple wilderness shelter is complete. It's just unclear if it can withstand strong winds. At Jesse's, while others eat fish and meat, he survives on 3 meals of bark a day. He hangs peeled bark pieces in camp to dry, snacking on them in his free time. Unable to find protein, he fills up on bark. But eating like this will surely cause bodily issues. So far, Jesse hasn't had a bowel movement in 2 weeks. Undigested toxins in his stomach make him very worried. So Jesse plans to grind pine bark in a powder, mixing it with boiled water for better absorption. He goes to the river to pick a smooth stone, brings it to camp to grind bark in a pot. Soon, he gets a pot of bark powder. But then, his stomach suddenly cramps intensely, so painful he rolls on the ground. After a while, it subsides. Struggling to stand, he realizes the severity. If not treated immediately, his life could be in danger. Without hesitation, he calls the show's organizers. Such a pity. He started off so well, but ended up in trouble from eating bark. With the doctor's help, Jesse reluctantly withdraws from the competition. To win the $500,000 prize, the Season 5 contestants of the Wilderness Survival Show have truly given their all. In an environment rich with resources, wild small-scale fish are so abundant they can't all be caught. Fish they can't finish are smoked in the shelter. Lucky ones even catch grouse for a change of taste, eating heartily, then snacking on 3 rats. Life passes by very comfortably. On the 24th day, while sleeping, Larry was suddenly awakened by a noise near his bed. It turned out a few mice had brazenly invaded his shelter. Fearing they would chew through his belongings, Larry moved his entire bed outside, determined to completely eradicate them. Remembering his past battles with mice on Vancouver Island, Larry despised these wild rodents. Even if he was hungry, he had to find a way to eliminate them. Without proper mouse traps, he frustratingly grabbed a can of bear spray and sprayed continuously into the gaps around his bed, hoping the pepper would drive the mice away. He then used a whistle to make annoying noises, believing this combination would surely make the mice flee. Meanwhile, at Britt's camp, he checked his reflection in a camera mirror that morning and suddenly realized he looked like Hayden, which made him laugh uncontrollably. After calming down, he took advantage of the good weather and went fishing by the river as usual. His area truly had more resources than others. Soon, the first fish took the bait, and before he could even react, a second fish followed. While the fish were active, he seized the chance to catch a few more to stock up. He cast his line more than 10 times in a row, and fish kept biting one after another. In less than half an hour, Britt had caught 5 fish, a rich source of protein. Surprisingly, inside one fish's stomach, he found an undigested dead mouse. This was truly unexpected, fishing with a side of French fries. The odds of this were lower than winning the lottery. With so many fish, one meal wouldn't be enough, so Britt took the extra fish to the roof to smoke them, removing moisture to preserve the meat longer. Over at Randy's side, another master fisherman was counting his stock of smoked fish. In total, he had 8.5 fish, which he had carefully placed in a chimney and covered with a metal sheet to trap the smoke inside, enhancing the flavor. By this point, Randy had almost fully adapted to life here. As long as he had enough daily food and his wilderness shelter, which he built with his own hands, the championship trophy was within reach. With that thought, he took his bow and arrow into the forest to hunt, hoping to catch a grouse to improve his meal. After walking a few hundred meters, he spotted a shadow flying past. Randy quickly drew his bow and shot, immediately catching a plump grouse. He plucked its feathers on the spot. High-quality ingredients like this naturally went into a stew, paired with smoked fish from the chimney. It could be said that Randy had officially dominated the competition. In contrast, Nika's situation was the complete opposite. Compared to others eating fish and meat daily, she was probably the most miserable so far. From the start, she had barely eaten any protein, surviving mostly on wild greens and forest berries. With light rain falling outside, she could only lie in her shelter, enduring hunger. With nothing to do, she braided her hair to pass the time. And so, she lay there for over 4 hours until the rain stopped. Then she took her gear outside to search for food. Grouse or deer were beyond her skill to catch, so the easiest things to find were mushrooms and roots in the mountains. She climbed the mountainside, so exhausted she could barely breathe. After burning hundreds of calories in vain and not wanting to return empty-handed, Nika walked a few more kilometers. Luckily, she found 2 wild, rose-like fruits. Though it cost a lot of energy, it was better than nothing. Nika continued forward and discovered a type of mushroom called birch polypore growing on a tree. This type is extremely rare in nature and is a fantastic ingredient for wild dishes. She quickly used a stick to knock them down and gathered a large bagful, planning to make soup with them that night. Nika then reached the mountain's peak, looking at the desolate scenery below. Combined with her string of empty-handed days, her confidence began to crumble. She didn't know how much longer she could hold on. On the 26th day, Depp was sharpening a knife in his shelter when he heard a noise outside. With his vast experience, he immediately grabbed his bow and arrow and rushed out. Looking around, he spotted a wild grouse. It appeared, and he quickly shot an arrow. But when he approached, the grouse was still very lively and flew away, disappearing. Retrieving his arrow, he judged that the grouse was likely badly injured and followed the riverbank to search for it. But sadly, it flew too fast, and by the time he arrived, there was no trace left, not even a single feather. Watching his prey escape right before his eyes made Depp deeply regretful. As night fell, while preparing to rest, he noticed a few mice running into his shelter. Luckily, he had already set up mouse traps, and as a result, one unlucky mouse got caught immediately. By the next morning, Depp had caught a total of 3 mice. It seemed he'd used the mouse meat to make up for yesterday's regret. Switching to Britt, who had the most fish among the contestants, eating fish every day was getting tiresome. To get more fat in his diet, he had to find other food sources. He went to the riverbank and picked up a large log, securing it to a frame and surrounding it with branches. In the middle, he placed bait for a trap. If a greedy animal stepped in, the rope would trigger, and the log would fall, capable of catching small to medium-sized animals. That night, Britt lay in his shelter, unable to sleep due to all sorts of strange forest noises that gave him goosebumps. He spent a fearful night. The next morning, he rushed to check the trap, only to find it hadn't been triggered, and the bait was still intact. He guessed the trap's rope was too long, so he adjusted it and returned to camp. On the way back, he spotted very large moose tracks, estimating the animal weighed about 200 to 250 kilograms. Others might have followed the tracks to hunt, but Britt feared being counterattacked by the animal, so he passed up the opportunity. On the 28th day, a tan pickup truck drove into the meadow, clearly indicating someone couldn't hold on anymore. Upon closer look, it was Nika, who had been starving for days without a proper meal. If she didn't return home, she might not survive. Compared to her Season 4 survival with her husband, this time, being alone made her feel the harshness of nature and dealt her a painful blow by reality. Finally, she packed her belongings, leaving the competition with deep regret. On the 29th day, 5 fierce competitors remained in the arena. As for the best hunter in the competition, Depp, just by taking a stroll, he shot a grouse. His skills were truly top-notch. He cleaned the grouse's feathers on the spot and roasted it. While waiting, he reflected that if he didn't hunt here, it would be no different from suicide. To survive, he had to accept the law of the strong surviving and the weak being eliminated. Since letting a grouse escape last time, he had always felt guilty, so he decided to craft a type of throwing dart. He carved wood into a flat surface, drilling 2 holes at the bottom. To use it, he inserted his fingers and threw it forcefully, creating extra force to significantly increase damage. After finishing, he eagerly took it out to test it. He placed the tip of a long spear into the groove, threw it with all his strength, but the effect wasn't as expected. So he continued sharpening the spear, aimed at the target, and threw again. With this stance, it could surely catch prey off guard. It must be said, this guy was quite talented. On Randy's side, early in the morning, he woke up and heard the calls of moose around his camp. At this moment, he realized it was their mating season. Combined with his loneliness for so long, Randy began missing his girlfriend far away. At this moment, lying in bed would be perfect. To get more protein, today's task was still to fish by the river. Up to now, this was his most stable food source. Sure enough, as soon as he cast the line, a fish bit immediately. He quickly reeled in and pulled the fish to shore, but halfway through, it unexpectedly fell back into the water. He dove under to search, but couldn't catch it. But for Randy, this wasn't a big deal. He cast his line again, and the second fish quickly took the bait. But while heading to shore, he slipped and fell, and the fish in his hand vanished. Truly bad luck. If it were someone else, they'd probably start cursing loudly, but Randy stayed calm. At this moment, he couldn't lose heart. Just cast a few more times, and there might still be hope. Sure enough, right after, he caught the third fish. Life is like that. Bitterness comes before sweetness to look forward to. Next came the 4th, 5th, and 6th fish, and he even caught a 7th. My goodness, this luck was absolutely top tier. Good thing he didn't give up earlier. With the 4 fish he had left at home, Randy now had a total of 10.5 fish stored. Divided into 3 meals a day, the rest would be smoked. Back to Larry. While he was sleeping in his shelter, he suddenly heard a noise outside. The sound was like wild boars roaming. After some hesitation, Larry decided to go out and check the situation. In this pitch-black darkness, who wouldn't be scared? Just a few steps out of the shelter, he hurriedly turned back. As time moved to the 30th day, Larry couldn't sleep all night. The constant boar noises reminded him of the trap he'd set. It turned out that as early as the 22nd day, Larry had completed a fairly sophisticated trap. If a foolish boar stepped on the trigger, the log above would fall and hit it. To ensure it came from one direction, he also surrounded the area with branches. With this large-scale hunting device, he could at least catch a wild boar weighing about 50 kilograms. So today, he decided to check if he'd caught anything. But upon arriving, he was stunned. The trap hadn't been triggered at all. The bait inside was still perfectly intact. Logically, there should be plenty of wild boars around. But this failure left Larry extremely disappointed. He couldn't figure out what went wrong. Switching to Sam, it's no exaggeration to say that so far, he'd only survived on plants and small birds. Fishing was truly difficult for him. Today's task was to check the fishing net set 2 weeks ago. The bait inside was a dead mouse, which he regretted not eating himself. He hoped it would yield results. However, when he pulled up the net, he only found a few leeches, not a single fish. Though these were small, their protein content was much higher than beef. He put the net back in the water, gathered the leeches, and took them back. To catch bigger fish, Sam stood by the shore, thought for a long time, and decided to weave a net. Luckily, he had brought plenty of rope. After 2.5 hours of effort, he attached the net to wooden sticks and completed it. He took the tool to the riverbank, but the current was too strong. Before he could cast the net, he nearly got swept away. After trying 10 times and failing, Sam was extremely frustrated. All that effort was now useless. It was truly demoralizing. Back at camp, he was completely disheartened. It seemed like he'd give up, but surprisingly, he lit a fire, took a few leeches from the morning's haul, cooked them carefully, and roasted them over the fire. Taking a bite. Oh my goodness, the taste was indescribably awful, a foul stench that hit straight to the brain. Utterly disgusting, but at least it provided some energy. Switching to Depp, after just 1 month, his weight had noticeably dropped. Thinking about how finding food in winter would be even harder, he decided to focus on setting traps. If he could catch one large animal, the $500,000 prize would be in his grasp. Taking his gear, he began climbing the mountain. Soon after, he discovered an animal trail. From the broken branches around, he could tell moose were definitely active. As a top hunter, after some thought, he decided to build a high vantage point for easier hiding and better ambush. Suddenly, he chopped 2 nearby trees, climbed up a sturdy birch, and secured it up high, forming a lookout tower over 6 meters tall. After checking its sturdiness, he climbed up with his bow and arrow. If a foolish animal wandered by, it would meet the same fate as that camera. On the 31st day, it was Britt's turn. With his fish stock nearly depleted, it was time to go fishing again. Unfortunately, today was colder than usual, meaning lower chances of catching fish. As expected, standing on the frozen river with cold wind blowing for 3 hours, he caught nothing. In this cold, even the fish didn't want to come out. Reluctantly, he returned empty-handed to plan how to ration his remaining food. Britt even kept fish skin for lunch. Who knows if he'd have to gnaw on fish bones next. On the 32nd day, Larry woke up early to check his mouse traps. Lifting the board, he found a mouse lying quietly inside. Overjoyed that the sleep-disturbing pest had finally been dealt with, after eating the mouse, Larry decided to make a fishing net to prevent fish from escaping mid-catch. Though he seemed hot-tempered, when it came to crafting, he was more skilled than most. Who knows how long it took to weave that tiny net? While resting nearby, strong winds began to blow, infuriating Larry. He immediately let out a string of curses. Finally, after 4 to 5 hours of effort, the giant net was completed. He hurriedly took his fishing rod to the river to test it. Perhaps the heavens took pity on him, granting him a small fish right away. Larry quickly scooped it up with the net, his joy making him grin from ear to ear. It seemed his homemade device finally worked. Back at camp, he quickly roasted the fish over the fire. Just 20 minutes later, he enjoyed a delicious meal. Though not the biggest fish he'd ever caught, it was the tastiest one yet. Now for Randy, the competition's toughest contender. While others worried about food, he was already thinking long-term. To prepare for a winter shortage of fish and meat, Randy planned to climb the mountain to find pine nuts to change up his diet. Taking his bow and arrow, he carefully entered the forest, blowing a whistle to attract pine squirrels. But after half a day wandering the mountain, he didn't find a single squirrel. Instead, he found a pile of bones on the ground, likely a deer attacked by a wolf pack. This made Randy instantly feel danger. To protect his life, he decided it was best to return to camp. On the 32nd day, with 5 contestants remaining, perhaps due to extreme hunger, Larry woke up feeling surprisingly energetic. Looking out, he saw frost covering everything, and the weather unexpectedly turned sunny and beautiful. What made him happiest was that last night, he no longer heard mice in his shelter. This made Larry jump for joy. Then he checked his mouse traps, and unbelievably, the first trap had caught one. Fearing the little Jerry wasn't fully dead, he tapped it with a stick, producing a crisp sound, showing that Mongolia's winter was no joke. In a flash, things could freeze solid like popsicles. As he prepared to return to camp, another trap showed movement. Lifting the stone, oh my, another crispy French fry mouse. Overwhelming joy filled Larry, giving him renewed hope for survival. He even named each trap, hoping to wipe out all the mice around. Soon after, dark clouds suddenly gathered, and Larry quickly ducked into his shelter. While preparing lunch, another mouse appeared. Larry, who was grinning, suddenly became furious. When would he ever catch all these pests? If he didn't eliminate them, he couldn't live in peace. Over at BEP's side, these past few days, he kept thinking about the moose in the mountains. He always wanted to catch one. Taking his bow and arrow, he went up the mountain again, carefully noting small signs around him. Soon, he heard noises from the other side of the mountain. Fearing that following the wind would scare the moose away, BEP decided to circle around the mountain. Based on tracks and sounds nearby, he estimated at least 3 moose were active. Not wanting to miss a once-in-a-lifetime chance, he hurriedly circled to their front. After 2.5 minutes of tough climbing, when he arrived, the moose had vanished without a trace. Busy for half a day, yet they still escaped. He guessed they must have smelled him. The climb had burned plenty of calories, and running faster than moose in this terrain was impossible. As it got dark, he decided to climb to the mountain's peak to admire the stunning scenery. Then BEP decided to build a temporary shelter halfway up the mountain to avoid returning to camp for rest. Since the 10th day, he had already set up a tent here. Using materials taken down before, he quickly rebuilt a small tent. Just as he finished, snow began to fall heavily. Lying in the tent, watching the beautiful snowy scene, BEP's mood gradually became optimistic, hoping his efforts would be rewarded. Over to Sam. With winter approaching, he had to quickly build walls for his shelter. Otherwise, freezing at midnight would be troublesome. He chopped down a few nearby birch trees, and after building the walls, added a wooden door. He secured the frame to the doorway and covered it with bark. Soon after, it was complete. Keeping warm wasn't critical for him, as long as wind didn't blow in. Just as he rested at camp, light snow began to fall. Looking around at the desolate scene, Sam felt homesick for the first time. As night fell, while preparing to sleep, Sam suddenly heard mice in his shelter. Not wanting to be disturbed, he decided to make a mouse trap. Unexpectedly, just as he finished, as he lay down, the trap immediately showed movement. The mouse nearly escaped. To spare Jerry the pain, Sam quickly acted humanely. There was no other way. Living in the wilderness, he had to accept the harsh reality. On the 34th day, light rain began at Randy's place. In this weather, he couldn't go hunting, so he could only stay in his mansion, crafting to pass the time. In no time, he finished a chair. He eagerly sat to test its comfort. In front of a warm fire, with light rain pattering outside, this moment was truly perfect. When the rain stopped and the sky cleared, Randy decided to climb the mountain behind his camp to, as he put it, see things from a different perspective. In plain terms, he was full and had nothing to do. Though he brought his bow and arrow to hunt, it wasn't a big deal. After mapping out his route, Randy put on his backpack and began climbing. The higher he went, the more his spirits lifted. After 2.5 hours of tough climbing, he finally reached the peak, exhausted but fulfilled. Looking down at the breathtaking view below, Randy couldn't help but shout loudly, as if all his worries vanished. He even boldly declared he could stay another 2 or 3 months. Over to Britt. In the middle of the night, instead of sleeping, he sat catching mice. Luckily, it didn't take long for an unlucky little Jerry to get caught. Though it didn't look big, it was perfect for a midnight snack. Using a small knife to gut it, he roasted it over the fire. Crispy outside, tender inside when cooked, he eagerly tried a bite, crisp in the mouth. It tasted like chicken, far better than beef. On the 35th day, Britt was thrilled. For him, today was very meaningful, because in Season 3, he gave up on this very day. Britt went to the river to check on the fish situation. Unexpectedly, a few small fish were jumping around. So he rushed back to camp to grab his fishing rod, hoping the heavy snow today would bring results. Sure enough, soon after, a foolish fish took the bait. He quickly pulled it to shore, too excited to keep fishing. He returned to camp to cook. Compared to the other contestants, Britt's mental state remained quite stable. He was still holding on strong. How long he could last depended on his remaining food supply. On the 35th day, as the weather grew colder, Randy's water bottle at home had frozen. His stock of dried fish was completely gone, so the urgent task was to try his luck at the river. But in this weather, fish basically wouldn't come out. Standing in the river, shivering, he ended up with nothing to show for it. It was truly frustrating. Mongolia's weather was like a girlfriend's mood, changing at a moment's notice. Just after enjoying a delicious fish meal, the next minute, he was curled up in his shelter, starving. As finding food became extremely difficult, Randy's spirit began to crumble. Sitting in his shelter, thinking for half an hour, he stripped down and took a cold water bath to refresh. If he wasn't mistaken, he did this last time and then gave up. Sure enough, the next second, he called the production crew. As the tan pickup truck slowly arrived, Randy said he couldn't find food and lacked social interaction, making him feel immense suffering. Finally, he packed his belongings and left the competition with regret. What a pity for the wilderness mansion he had built. On the 35th day, only 4 contestants remained. The weather grew colder and colder. Britt woke up and decided to make a snow sled so that even in heavy snow, he could move quickly on the ground. He gathered 12 sturdy pine logs for the frame, then carved grooves into them. He attached prepared wooden slats, and thanks to the sturdy mortise structure, the sled was quickly completed. He tested it nearby, flexible, durable, and able to carry plenty of firewood. After finishing, Britt returned to camp, planning to go fishing, but strong winds suddenly blew outside, so he decided to stay in his shelter all day. On days without protein, he passed the time by crafting, hoping to bring home small gifts for his son. On Larry's side, he'd been hungry for 4 or 5 days, making him feel terrible. He decided to try his luck on the opposite mountain. Several climbers before him had given up halfway. Could Larry break this curse? Leaning on a stick, he trudged a few hundred meters, discovering clumps of tall, plump, considered to be highly nutritious and rare in the wilderness. No matter what, he had to pick them and bring them back first, then continue moving forward. A lot of gray wolf droppings appeared on the ground, scaring Larry out of his wits. If it was just one wolf, he could still handle it, but if an entire pack rushed at him, the consequence would surely be getting eaten alive. He hurriedly climbed to the mountain's peak, admiring the desolate scenery, then quickly returned to camp, planning to take a good nap. Who knew his hungry stomach kept growling nonstop? So hungry he couldn't stand it. He took his fishing rod to the river. Sadly, the weather was too cold. The fish had swum to deeper waters. Standing by the shore for 3 whole hours without catching a single fish, with no other choice, it seemed he was destined to go hungry. On BEP's side, as his weight gradually dropped, lying on the wooden bed caused pain from his bones pressing. On days without protein, even as a survival expert, he could only drink water to sustain himself. Not wanting to become skin and bones like on Vancouver Island, the task of finding food was extremely urgent. He went to the observation post he had built earlier, deciding to stay there all afternoon to observe the situation, hoping with luck to catch something. But hanging on the tree for over 4 hours, the freezing wind made him shiver. The heavens didn't take pity, and he returned empty-handed. 7 consecutive failures made BEP feel uneasy. The harsh reality of life flashed clearly in his mind. After the last competition on Vancouver Island, it took him half a year to recover. Not wanting to repeat the same mistake, after much thought, BEP called to withdraw. What a pity, a survival expert ultimately defeated by reality. But through this competition, he understood the true meaning of survival. Sometimes you can't push yourself too far. When you need to relax, just relax. Finally, he packed his belongings, smiling as he left the competition. Moving to the 36th day, 3 contestants remained. On Sam's side, who knows how he managed to survive all these days. Taking advantage of the good weather, he decided to make himself a cup. Despite such a tough life, the ritual of drinking water couldn't be skipped. Using an axe to smooth the wood, then burning charcoal to create a large hole, then shaping the cup's rim to his liking and carving a handle, finally, sanding the surface to finish. It must be said, his stamina was truly impressive. After finishing the cup, he planned to reinforce his shelter. Who knows where he found the strength to do it? He gathered over 10 branches, attaching them to the roof, so even with heavy snow, it wouldn't collapse. On Britt's side, recalling how he used grasshoppers as fishing bait before, but now the grasshoppers were all dead, so he decided to make a fake lure. Tying 3 hooks together and using shredded rope as bait, how effective it would be, only testing would tell. The next morning, Britt took his gear to the riverbank. Soon after, he switched to trolling mode. Sure enough, not long after, there was movement underwater, making him overjoyed. He immediately used force, pulling hard, but the hook snapped, so he not only lost the lure, but also dropped all 3 hooks. Truly unlucky. It seemed he couldn't escape going hungry after all. Time passed to the 40th day. Larry lay in his camp, starting to miss his family. Many days apart made him gradually think of quitting. To distract himself, he found a birch tree, planning to use its bark to make protective goggles. Using his fingers to measure the distance between his eyes, then using a small knife to cut 2 holes in the bark, after putting it on his head, he looked no different from a movie star. Though the vision wasn't perfect, it helped reduce light entering the eyes, preventing snow blindness, sure to be useful on heavy snow days. Then he returned to camp, sitting by the fire, killing time like a champion. Since his failure on Vancouver Island, when he returned home, he lived in misery, overwhelmed with guilt, making him avoid interacting with anyone, almost falling into depression. Taking advantage of the heavy snow, Larry lay in bed, lost in thought, but this time, he truly let go. Missing his family brought tears to his eyes in pain. When the weather cleared, Larry wrote loving words to his wife on the tent. Finally, after half an hour of heavy contemplation, he decided to call and withdraw. When the tan pickup truck slowly arrived, Larry said he had a stable job, a happy family, no need to keep pushing in this situation anymore. Then he packed his belongings, leaving the competition with regret. Time passed to the 41st day. Only 2 players remained. A massive snowstorm covered all of Mongolia. Britt stepped out of his tent, feeling extremely excited, even juggling a few snowballs to show off. Fearing the tent roof couldn't bear the snow's weight, he hurried back to camp to build a big fire, hoping the high heat would melt the snow. After finishing, he put on warm clothes, planning to drag the sled to gather nearby firewood. However, the snow was too thick, making the sled unusable. When he planned to return to camp, he spotted rabbit tracks in the snow. Based on the disturbed soil nearby, Britt was certain small animals lived in the area, so he set up a snare trap nearby. If a greedy animal ran toward it, it would be instantly pulled into the air, hoping in a few days it would bring him a harvest. Meanwhile, on the other side, Sam used snow and bark to make himself an ice cream cone. Thanks to his ample fat reserves, he completely relied on his strong hunger endurance to survive. Until now, when going out to chop firewood, he stumbled upon animal tracks in the forest. Sam confirmed they were rabbit tracks and wanted to set up a hunting trap. Nearby, he chopped a few sturdy logs, tying them between two large trees, then placing a log on top. If a small animal passed through the middle, the log would fall, achieving the hunting effect. In the following time, both hid in their shelters to avoid the cold, relying on each person's hunger endurance to keep persevering. At this point, it was a test of both physical strength and willpower. Both mostly stayed in their camps, sleeping. And so, time passed to the 56th day. Both couldn't hold on and picked up the phone to withdraw. The beep sounded a few crisp times. The production team trekked through forests and mountains urgently, arriving to find out it was Britt who couldn't hold on. These past few days, hunger caused his stomach to cramp. He didn't expect his opponent to endure hunger better than him. Though he didn't win in the end, compared to last time, surviving just over 30 days, this time, 56 days, was a huge personal victory. Finally, he packed his belongings, completing this challenge fully. Time passed to the 60th day. Sam was the only one left on the field. At this moment, he was still playing with his snowshoes. Looking at the big picture, besides eating wild greens and drinking water, he ate almost nothing else. His incredible hunger endurance even impressed the heavens. When the production team arrived and conducted a series of health checks for Sam, he was mentally prepared to withdraw at any moment. The experiences during this time made him unable to hold back tears. Just then, his wife slowly approached from behind. Turning around, Sam was so moved he couldn't speak. He didn't expect to be this season's champion. After calming down, Sam showed his girlfriend around his camp, then took his gear and the $500,000 prize, boarding a helicopter back home, fully satisfied.